I'd like to ask my panelists to come up to the stage while I introduce you. I had to chuckle when I looked back at the recent McKinsey report. They have a kind of a one-page summary of the findings in the report, and the headline on that one-page sheet says, "Modular construction's time may finally have come." And I know my friend Joe Weiss is in the audience, where the last time I was in a room with him talking about modular, he reminded us that Lee Iacocca told us that modular was going to change the world about 40 years ago. So there certainly has been a lot of fits and starts. You saw some of that on TG's timeline. But hopefully this time McKinsey is right, and that modular construction's time may finally have come. I'd now like to introduce our four panelists, and they are going to be rapid fire, and I do want to let you know that we probably won't have time for Q&A, but each of the panelists' companies will be represented in the breakout sessions, so I really ask you to jot down your questions and go to the breakout sessions or catch them over lunch or at the reception later this afternoon. So in the order that they will present, we have to my left, in the first chair, Christian Lawrence, who is the CEO of Is Modular, a Minnesota-based company that you'll hear more about. To his left is Vern Mattheisen, our other Minnesota representative at the table, sales and marketing manager for Dynamic Homes. To my right is Tim Swanson, who is Chief Design Officer for Skender, and finishing up, Justin van Leuvan, Director of Business Development at Katerra. So with that, Christian, would you please kick us off?
Thank you, Mary, and thank you to all the other organizers and sponsors, and thank you to the participants who've taken time out of their busy schedules to join this important conversation. TG really lined it up well, and it's a great introduction. Housing is a foundational issue facing this region and the country as a whole, and it's important to have conversations like this, and I think private industry and technology can play a big role in helping reduce construction costs. So I founded Is Modular about a year and a half ago because I got involved in 200-unit mixed-use multifamily development in St. Michael, Minnesota, which is about 30 minutes west of here, for those of you that don't know. And given the market rents in the area, we wanted to explore modular housing as a solution to build faster and more cost-effectively and make the pro forma work. I'd read about modular construction and seen examples of large-scale projects on the coasts, but had not seen anything of scale built in the Twin Cities area. So I did some research and discovered the regional modular builders in existence were the following. There's actually a surprising number of them, but I went and toured most of them, and it turned out that they were largely focused on single family. And their legacy sales channel was through a single-family dealer network, and so it was problematic to give up 4 or 6 months of production to one project and leave their customers high and dry. So I decided to cast a wider net and look to the whole country of who could build this project. It turned out the closest to build wood was Gurdon and Nashua out of Boise, Idaho. The problem is these modules cost about $5 to $10 per pod per mile to transport, and so shipping from Boise to Minneapolis would have eaten up all the costs that could be achieved by savings in the plant. So I decided there must be an opportunity to start my own company. I spent the last year or so touring some of these plants all over the country and talking to developers, contractors, planners, officials, and validated the opportunity and decided where we would position the company. The first thing we did was recruit a highly capable and experienced management team, some of which you see here. We have 110 plus years of combined experience on the team, and our management team has, in past jobs, built the first modular apartment building in New York City, 1.6 million square foot military housing project in Texas, and apartments and hotels on the smaller scale in Minnesota and the Midwest. So why did we pick modular as opposed to panels or other offsite strategies? And I think TG said it well. We're going for efficiency rather than flexibility. There's some flexibility in modular, but certainly not to the extent of panelized. But you're building more off-site, and so there are more efficiencies. The speed, and I won't go too much into these because I think TG did a great job of covering them. Speed, cost, quality, and sustainability were the key factors, as well as worker safety, rather than in our long, cold winters in Minnesota being strapped to the sixth floor of a project with ice and wind. You can be wearing a T-shirt in a climate-controlled environment working at the ground level. So diving a little bit more into why it's so much faster, and this is a bit of a repeat from TG's slide. We're doing the site work at the same time as manufacturing in the plant, and that's where you get the bulk of the savings. And obviously time saved helps your return metrics and helps the pro forma. So what is modular for those of you that have not done a project or dug too deep into it? It's the full structure as you see here on the left. So you start with the framing, and this is wood as opposed to steel, which we'll hear about. And this is obviously a very high-end project on the right, but this is the level of finish you're doing in the plant. You're installing all the case goods. You're installing the kitchens and bathrooms, the lighting, the flooring. So it's a different approach than panelized. And we were going to have a video, but the technology didn't work. Do we want to play it? So this is a video of time-lapse of a project being built in California. And watch carefully because the modules are stacked so quickly that you might miss it. So I think a video speaks to the speed better than I could. You have all the modules ready, built in the factory, and you can stack up to 15 or 16 a day in the right conditions. And so a 100-unit project or 200-unit project can be set in a matter of weeks, not months. And then you obviously have to come and do the MEP connections, interior finishes, and exterior cladding, which, to Jason's point, you can get very creative with your exterior finishes and make the same unit mix look very different. So why did we pick wood as opposed to steel? And that's simply because the vast majority of units delivered in the upper Midwest are in wood. And actually Minnesota produces more wood units in multifamily and hospitality than even Illinois, largely because of they're building higher, taller buildings. And wood is cheaper unless you're going much higher. So this is our facility that will be opening by the end of the year. It's about 150,000 square foot facility on 35 acres, designed to be expanded up to 500,000 square feet. To TG's point, I need an order for 10,000 units before I can build a 5 million square foot facility. But for now, we'll start here. And target markets are multifamily, including market rate, workforce, and affordable, and then hospitality, senior and student housing as well. So this is about the target geography for the first plant, and we're excited to announce that we've almost filled our 2020 production capacity, everywhere from 30-unit affordable project to 250-unit hotel and apartment project. So we're working on about 15 projects in various stages of design, and we've been very pleased with the demand, notwithstanding the chicken and egg issue. It's been a challenge to convince people to give us orders before we even have the plant up and running. But we're so excited about the demand that we're already starting to plan phase 2 and 3 of launching more plants across the Midwest in areas that don't currently have modular manufacturers. Please contact us if you want to learn more or want to set up a meeting. We've got several of our team members here, and so feel free to reach out. And I'll be speaking at the financing breakout session as well. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I appreciate everybody taking time out of their day to come and be with us here today. I am Vern Mattheisen. I am Sales and Marketing Manager for Dynamic Homes based out of Detroit Lakes, Minnesota. And we've been in business for 49 years. Next year will be our 50th year of production. From day one, we've been nothing but modular. We've never done manufactured housing, which kind of states for itself that we believe in the product as well. It started in 1970 with a handful of people in a single pole barn. Today, we currently operate in a 180,000 square foot facility with over 100 employees. We basically pride ourselves in always being first and foremost to the single family house project. However, we do also consider doing commercial projects as well. We pride ourselves in doing ramblers, 2 stories, split levels, split entry, cathedrals, and any of those types in the industry. We are stronger and we are energy efficient with less air infiltration, all of which saves money to the homeowner. We do sell our houses through a network of independent authorized builder dealers throughout Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, North and South Dakota, and part of Nebraska. All of these are built in the same high quality standards that we implement in our houses today. Okay, where is it? Each building we produce at Dynamic Homes is built by codes prescribed by the ICB, and all of our plans and approvals for our building methods are inspected by the state of Minnesota. One consistent factor that we have is our employees. As I mentioned earlier, we have over 100 employees, and with the average employment that stays with a single company today at barely over 3 years, we have employees that have been with us for 30 and 40 years. And with the amount of experience that we generate from those employees with the longevity that we have with them, it allows us to continually train our next generation of dynamic carpenters. Transportation, I believe, is key within the company. We try to service a radius of approximately 400 miles from Detroit Lakes, Minnesota. I believe that we are one of, if not the only manufacturer that takes care of the permits, lining up the cranes, and setting the houses either on your foundation or crawl space. This service separates us from some of the competition, and the dealers see it as value that it brings to them. Dynamic Homes is 95% owned by the Winnebago tribe of Nebraska. They invested in us firstly to bring good quality homes to their members. And secondly, they've seen a solid company and a solid investment. We have always been working with tribes throughout Minnesota and North and South Dakota, but we are also marketing ourselves to tribes throughout the upper Midwest, proudly letting them know that we are a native ownership. Some of the things that we can do versus site-built homes. First of all, for dynamic homes, we are built in a climate-controlled facility. No weather delays, no damaged materials, it's all been eliminated. All of the materials are stored inside sheds until transferred to the facility for production. Brand name quality materials throughout the industry are used by dynamic homes. Typically, we set our pricing throughout the spring of the year, and we maintain and hold those prices for the duration of the year, if possible, versus a lumberyard. Our building system provides better overall quality and workmanship. The buildings that we produce are more rigid than a stick-built, basically because of transportation needs. And the delivery of the building is on a timely manner and on budget. There's no overruns to the project. Once you sign the agreement to build the house, it'll be delivered at that price. Another thing is, throughout the production of the house or the project, it is inspected 17 different phases during the construction throughout the plant. All building components are engineered, approved, and stamped. No guesswork like on-site built. Waste products are cleaner and healthier to the environment. For a site-built, materials constantly are objective to the environment, the weather, delays, shortages, costly weather delays, material costs, and overruns. Use of multiple subs, contractors lead the inconsistency quality. Laborers. Inspections are a minimum, if best, on site. Oh, we're done? Yeah. Oh, sorry. Okay. Well, thank you very much, guys.
All right, thank you all very much, and thank you for coming. I'm going to try to keep to time and do a bunch of things that we have to do in this conversation. One, I'm going to talk about technology, cars, phones, offsite construction, use some graphs from TG, and then sort of really quickly show some of the stuff that we're doing too. So at a high level, if you think about it, Wikipedia, which is never wrong, thank God the internet's here for us, says that 30,000 years ago somebody tied a rock to the end of a stick and hit stuff with it. And we wonder in this day and age, with everything that TG presented, why we still struggle with many of those issues, right? Why the reality that the most organized construction site is never nearly as organized as what it looks like when you're manufacturing product. And we talk a lot about the complexities of buildings, how challenging buildings are, the conditions in which buildings go, and we completely forget the fact that we put tin cans 35,000 feet into the air and fly them at 600 miles an hour. There's a reason why we haven't gotten there yet, right? We've tried this in lots of different ways. We've even tried to go multi-story with modular housing historically. So we've been pushing the bounds of this. When we talk about how communities work and the desire to have open space and connectivity, green space and environment, we have an industry that's been around for decades doing exactly that. And yet we're finally coming back around to the bigger pieces of this. The former Soviet Union saw this as a solution to address housing needs across a large portion of this world. These are things that happened over and over again. We can look at these all day long. Kit houses, $191 for that kit house. Now, to be fair, there is fine print. There's always fine print. $266 to have this pre-cut for you. But we see it from different economies and different scales. My favorite being the Magnolia. The Magnolia is a gorgeous $6,382 house shipped to your lot that you can put together. Now, the interesting thing about the Magnolia, that's one that just sold for $3.2 million in the North Shore of Chicago. So there's this idea that we need to get back around to when a kit house, a $6,500 kit house, sells for over $3 million. What are we missing, right? What, as an industry, why aren't we doing this better? Why is this the only picture that comes to our mind when we think about housing typologies? Why not something like this? And so, okay, so I told you we're going to do this. All right, phones. We're going to talk about phones for 2 slides, right? Technology is drawn, it's explored, it's tested on. There's lots of cool new ways that this stuff works. But the most important thing, and the thing that is a common theme, is that there's iteration, right? There's actually 2 more generations of this product that are not on this diagram. We do this in these sort of lessons learned fits and starts across our industry as designers, as contractors, as fabricators and manufacturers, but we don't do it in the same way. So for us and for everybody in this room, it's sort of a different kind of process, isn't it? It's sort of designing, manufacturing, outfitting, stacking, sort of getting to a place where we are treating those buildings more like products than true buildings. So what we've done at Skender is a 65-year-old construction company based in Chicago, primarily focused on a couple different typologies, corporate projects, residential projects across a scale, and healthcare projects. What we realized is that maybe there's a different way for us to do it. And so a year and a half ago, we restructured the company. Now we're still one of the largest contractors in the Chicagoland area, but we've added design. That's where they have to deal with me on a daily basis, and manufacturing to say, all right, if we think about these things in the same way, can we deliver them in a different way? Can we go from material matrices where we're tracking costs in Excel to maybe a little bit more accurate platforms, to really weaving in a manufacturing process. Platforms that take our design files, and Jason mentioned this a little bit earlier, driving directly from the Revit models that we're using into manufacturing processes. In fact, just about a month and a half ago, our first successful test of driving from Revit, so design files that your architects are using right now, driving automated welding robots for us so that we can go volumetric and steel in the ways that cars are put together. But it kind of starts in 2 different areas. One is this. It's an obeya room. Obeya is a Japanese term that generally means big, a big room. It's getting everybody together. It's every morning having architects and engineers, manufacturers, trade partners, and contractors talking about all the challenges, talking about all the opportunities, all the lessons learned, every single day learning better and better processes. And on the other side of that is wildly rethinking what our labor strategies are. Going to a number of partners, these are all partners based in Chicago, to identify what a next generation of workforce might actually look like, where they may come. And they come from different places, from resource centers, from programs that are trying to end poverty, from programs that are trying to give people a second chance, a sort of leg up, so that folks like these 2 who have never worked in the trades in their lives are now union carpenters. That's pretty exciting for us. It required a couple different things. It required structuring a union labor agreement that allowed this to be manufacturing. It also required solutions like this to treat those teams, some of which were working fast food jobs 6 weeks ago, and now they're working in a controlled, skilled environment. It's that path where we see a better opportunity, where we can think about how we build things, how the processes go together, but also what it means for communities, what it means, as we've touched on earlier, and we're going to continue to talk about, incredible pressures around housing and the burden of housing, right? How you get to products that look like this, products that are finished with those expectations that far exceed anything we build, but put them into buildings that look like this. 2 of those are infill projects. These are infill affordable housing projects that are a basis, a fundamental driver for a lot of the scale work that we're doing. Now, because we're in Chicago, our sort of wheelhouse is probably 5 to 12 stories. That's where we feel really strongly, and that's an important area for Chicago. But Chicago also has 17,000 vacant single-family lots across its neighborhood, and wild disinvestment in communities that desperately need it. So this is it's a twofold piece for us. It's a demand leveling, as TG talked about earlier, making certain that we have flow through that factory, and at the same time, community leveling. How do we partner with the neighborhoods that most need investment and infill them? What's also really key is that the parts and pieces, and this is just this ongoing theme, the parts and pieces that made those buildings are the same parts that are going into that one, or this one, or this senior living facility, or even that high rise in the middle back. The idea that as an architect, and this is my sort of love song to our profession, there are so many areas that I'd rather focus on than the distance of a toilet from a wall. The code tells us exactly what that is, and so let's think about these things differently so that we can get to buildings that look like this. These are projects that are all happening concurrently. That Obeya conversation, all of these projects are informing all the other projects. The healthcare projects that we're doing are informing the senior living projects and vice versa. This is where, real quick, I'm going to steal a bunch of other people's data. We're going to fly through it. But let's talk about the industry. This came from McKinsey's first report. The immense opportunity that we have in an industry, the largest single asset class in the world, yet we're not realizing it. The potential for growth and why we track construction and manufacturing separate from general growth patterns for an industry are because of their opposite influences across the industry. These are the productivity goals and potentials that McKinsey has sort of illustrated and sort of expanded upon now from just construction to this sector that we're talking about today, and the pressures that we have around skilled labor. So we have these. We have the sort of pressures from that side. We have the pressures from the environment. I'm really proud of this diagram. I chose all the colors in it. This is the most complicated data set that I could provide to you all. But this is the reality, right? In the past 20 years, automobiles have gotten almost 98% less polluting, and we still feel like they are a burden on how we operate. And yet, all this time, $180 trillion asset class globally, and we're not addressing it in the right ways. It's another really good diagram I made. This is the reality for Illinois, that all household waste combined is 1/3 of construction waste. Or a different way to put it, for the state of Illinois, 20% of buildings building materials end up in landfills. They pass right through the site out into the field. And so it's about that. Well, actually, that's not true. It's 80 of those is what we do every single year in Illinois. These are the challenges that we face, and humanity, right? We're desperate to fix this housing crisis. We're seeing this in city after city, the burden that comes. In Chicago, according to DePaul University, we have a 180,000 unit deficit of severely cost-burdened households. 180,000 units. And per the Government Accountability Office, if we fund them affordably, it costs $345,000. So again, here is my math. This is pretty great. Chicago has a $62 billion hole in affordable housing. And thank goodness our entire construction sector is $3 billion a year. So the realities, the challenges that we face from workforce development, skills training, introducing a whole new generation into our industry, and the holes we're trying to fill to create more equitable and viable cities going forward means we have to think about it differently. Means we have to think about a family of four making the area median income of 60% in Chicago. $225,000 is the maximum cost that they could afford. And yet that's where we're starting. So they don't equal each other. That doesn't work. That doesn't make sense. But the question is, what if it did? So just like a lot of other sectors, just like what was touched on earlier, now here's my end note on automobiles. If that platform, that's a skateboard for a Tesla, is that car, that car, that car, and that car, why can't we do that for housing too? Thank you all very much.
Hello, everybody. Justin Van Leuvan, Katerra. I run sales for the East Coast, really everything east of Texas for multifamily. Out of Atlanta, by the way, so thank you for having the summit in September and not January. It is pretty funny. I was downtown Minneapolis yesterday, and I know you guys have all those crossovers, skyways, and I was thinking, it must get so cold here that you can't walk outside in January or you will die? Is that fair? Okay. I just thought it was funny. So I usually open up these presentations with saying, the idea for Katerra is that we are an assemblies company, or we're prefab, or we're just a construction company, But the idea is much broader for us. We consider ourselves a technology company that is in the construction business. I think if you look at the amount of time, expense, research, development that's all focused on technology, you really look at what it is that Katerra is truly all about. Our mantra right now is better, faster, and smarter. And so what does that mean? It really does mean, and I know we've used this word quite a bit today, is technology and research and development, and how it is that we can take what is truly needed in this industry, which is innovation. It's been brought up a few times as far as automated factory industrialization through industries like cars or electronics. I mean, these are massive industries. There's $800-900 billion industries. But if you looked at the construction industry, I think Jason mentioned it, it's 1.3 trillion. And there hasn't been any innovation in this industry over the last 100 years outside of maybe the nail gun. And so that's really why Katerra, we think, Katerra and then my colleagues up here, that's really why we're here, is to try to figure out a way to make it so that we can solve two of the biggest problems, which is really time and its cost. So what is Katerra? It's tough for a 10-minute wrap-up for Katerra. I could spend forever because we're so multifaceted. But a quick explanation is that we're out to do things differently. And what I mean by that is we want to control the entire process of construction. So we consider it end-to-end. And so very simply, it's from the conception or inception of design and engineering. So it's our products, and we've used the word product here before. So for me, a multifamily, senior housing, an office building, to me is a product based on Revit, based on a BIM, a bill of materials. So I know the number of nails within this design. I have my own supply chain that's global, where I'm sourcing all of the materials myself. These are in Shenzhen, Hong Kong, to Brazil, France, Guadalajara, bringing in all of those materials myself into our factory or factories, which we have one in Phoenix. Our newest one is in San Francisco. We have one in Dallas coming next year, and then another one that's coming in the Southeast, likely Georgia, South Carolina. And then my colleague over there in the corner, Pete Cobelt, he runs sales for cross-laminated timber, and we're real excited about that one. That's it's the world's largest cross-laminated timber factory. And that's in Spokane, Washington. And they've been producing CLT for a few months now, and so pretty exciting. Pete's going to be a part of a panel, so we can talk about it. So we're taking all of those materials into our factories and then creating assemblies, or we've talked about wall panels, floor systems, roof trusses. The trick, I think the secret sauce to Katerra is just ownership of the supply chain, taking those materials and truly baking as much of those materials inside the panel as we can. There's some construction folks in here that are saying, okay, well, nationally, what you're going to be able to do in one state is not possible to do in the other state, or even, in the same city, but the municipalities are broken apart by a street, they'll let you do one thing versus the other. So the idea, though, is to put as much material inside that panel. If we can get the cladding on it, all the MEP, electrical, drywall, if the municipality would let us do this. But right now, it's just getting as much in there in that panel, taking it, stacking it up on a truck, shipping it out to the site to then be assembled on site. And so for us, the end-to-end model, what I am a part of is we are the architect of record, we're the engineer of record, and we're the GC of record. Truly multifaceted. Again, we could spend all day talking about what it is that we truly do, but I think for us, there's many verticals at Katerra, just like there's many industries and people here that can service from Katerra. You don't have to just go end to end, which is stagnant for me, where I've got to control everything. We also have just a straight material sales team where you can a la carte buy all of the materials that we're sourcing, which, by the way, just all based on scale and volume. We're trying to get the price down. There's also a renovations aspect to it. So if you're a multifamily owner and you own deals that are 7+ years older, you need to get those deals renovated. And so we bought a company 2.5 years ago called United Renovation out of Dallas. They're the largest in the nation. I mean, they're doing $200+ million in renovations annually. And that, again, was just a material play for us to get the volume of materials down. And then so the last part, which is more recent because of our acquisitions, we are acquiring GCs and architectural firms regionally, but all over the nation. And so we're starting to consider ourselves pretty beefy as it relates to just GC opportunities. And so we can take a third-party architectural design and then just use our GC service. And obviously, as a benefit to that, you're sourcing our materials. And so there's hopefully a cost savings or just a savings for materials as it relates to just being a standard general contractor. Technology, we've talked about it. The few things on this slide, I think that one of the most interesting and most new or innovative is our software. So Katerra is out of Silicon Valley, and so of course, coming out of that region, we're pretty proud. We have to come up with some sort of software. We think that this is going to be revolutionary as it relates to just construction management software. Where it gets really interesting is for us from just the ownership of the entire process. So imagine this software from the land acquisition to estimating to budgeting, pre-con to even all the way through construction. One of the better takeaways from maybe this presentation, which I might have to cut short, but the takeaways is that, so if it's my materials and it's my design and I'm building, let's say 65 to 70% of the product in my factory using this software for just estimating purposes, think about the knowledge of cost associated to building that deal that you have well in advance of just your typical construction model. For me, that's one of the better takeaways. Like Jason, I loved it. Our slides were very comparable. So to me, this is just a 3-story garden walk-up product that we have. It's a bill of materials to me. I know the number of nails. I know everything about this. Bones of the deal important. Both these deals could be adjacent to each other on the street, but to the tenant or to anybody else, you would never know that this is the same deal. It's just the cladding can be different. The roof setting could be flat, pitched, whatever. But we're not out to build cookie cutter stuff. This is beautiful. There are intentions here, but we just want to standardize. It's a big word we've used today a lot. So the idea is just standardize for building design, from unit planning to standardize for materials and products, etc. Examples of our factory, this is one in Phoenix on the left. In the middle is our mass timber that's in Spokane CLT. And then precast concrete. So we bought a precast concrete company in India. We're very active in the Middle East. We have intentions of building 5 factories in Saudi Arabia and I think 2 more in India. So there is a housing crisis there with, I think our intentions are to build upwards of over 1 million single-family homes over there with malls and hospitals, et cetera. And so, we're not just North America focused. We want to build, obviously, globally. Takeaway for us, materials, just ownership of the supply chain, completely vertically integrated. We have talked about this, taking labor from the site, bringing it into a factory, and then logistics using our SAP to control the control communication between the factory and the site. There's a photo of wood. It's supposed to be a video. One last takeaway. We're in execution mode. We've been out trying to just research, development, figured out acquisitions. Takeaway, we've got what I would consider our first building. It's in Las Vegas called Fort Apache. It's 8 buildings. Each of our building is 24 units. We quarantined one building to figure out how fast we can build it, and we built it in less than 90 days. That is probably 50% less than market. And this was our first one, so real excited about it. The opportunity for us is we think we can get this down from 90 days to 60 days to 30 days. Just a matter of time. Thank you.
We have a little bit of time, so I'm going to ask each of the panelists a question. And if you have enough time, please keep your answers brief. And if you have enough time, we'll go for another round. Let's start with you, Christian. So you're a new company, and you could have built your factory anywhere. Why did you pick Minnesota? What was it about Minnesota that made it attractive to you?
Well, for starters, I live here, so that's a good start. Grew up here, care a lot about the Minneapolis and greater Minnesota region. And when we looked at the market around the country where there are large-scale commercial modular manufacturers, there is a huge white space in the Midwest. And we are producing more units out of wood in Minnesota than any other state in the Midwest. And so it was a no-brainer.
Got it. Great. Vern, you guys have been around a long time, as you mentioned. In the many years that Dynamic has been in the business, you must have seen demand come and go. You've seen a few cycles. How have you been able to manage those cycles? What have you observed?
Well, I guess years ago, you'd have to say that the majority of the houses that we built were probably 22 to 2,400 square foot homes. Coming out of the recession, those were the type of people that could afford products and that. Nowadays, you're seeing more in the 1,000 to 1,200 square foot, either their first time buyer or they just a step up buyer where they want to get into a newer home or whatever. And we're also seeing a lot of more commercial activity as well. We just finished a 36 unit apartment project. It's going to be setting in Cloquet tomorrow, and it's probably going to be rented out in 3 months. So there's a lot of change there too.
Fantastic, thank you. Tim, what do you see as some of the key features that you're relatively new to the business that you need to unlock productivity and delivery?
Yeah, that's a good question. The reality for our industry is that we can't just look like manufacturing. We have to actually be manufacturing. So what that means is it's around this place of standardizing the parts that make sense, creating a workforce around that, supporting supply chains, whether internally or externally, to get there, and designing from the very inception for this process. So for us, it meant bringing on design, bringing on manufacturing, solving it in a way that many of the other folks on this panel are solving it, which is to say, if we're all working together, right, in this bigger collaborative environment, then we can get to a place where any of those other potentials are unlocked.
Got it. Great. Justin, Katerra is the only example on stage of a company that chose to go the panelization path. Yep. All these other guys are doing volumetric. Can you talk a little bit about what you saw as the benefits to make that strategic decision?
I think, is my mic on here?
Didn't sound like it.
So yeah, I think if you looked at Katerra, we first started out as just a material supply company. Then we realized very quickly that these subcontractors didn't really like our model because there were markups that were available to them, and if we were supplying materials, then that was gone. And so then we decided, well, we're just going to become a construction company. And we looked at modular, and there's pluses and minuses to both. As a matter of fact, these are great presentations that really show some of the advantages, disadvantages. For us, it was more about using the material supply chain that we have built up and using that to our advantage without shipping containers or boxes that have air. And so, we spent a lot of research and development to try to figure out a way to do that. Bathroom kits to be one of them. And we do have a bathroom kit, but we have really tried to put it in as more efficiently for those materials that are inside it. So it was sort of an evolution to why we're here.
Fantastic, fantastic. Looks like we may have time for one more round. So Christian, back to you. When you look across all the stakeholders that you had to deal with when you started up here, where did you find the most support and energy coming from, and where did you have to do the most work?
I'd say the biggest supporter has been the developers. Obviously, construction costs have risen so much that they're trying to do something to figure out how to make more deals pencil out. And there's a huge missing middle of projects that, I think Jason had a slide, or TG, we're only building luxury product right now. And if you can drive costs down, you can build that missing middle without deep public subsidy. And so I think that's where there's been the most energy and excitement. And then the most challenging, I would say, is the financing side. Both, solving the chicken and egg problem and financing the capital-intensive nature of a manufacturing plant before you have 100% clarity on what your pipeline is going to be. And then on the project side, getting lenders comfortable with the collateral flow, and at least in this region, a limited number of other modular companies that could step in and fill the role. Obviously, if you're a GC and you build a project on site, someone else can come in and fill that void, but it's more complicated in the modular industry, so I'd say lenders.
Got it. Vern, recently you made a decision to kind of branch out a little bit from single-family homes into other areas. You're doing, multifamily perhaps, and a few other things. What led you to consider these other growth areas?
Well, I think it was kind of pretty much the demand, you might say, that called for it. I mean, if we want to grow our company, we need to expand and look outside the box, you might say, and reach out and take any opportunity that might come towards us in regards to that, decision. And it's basically the same as the first answer in a sense, too. I mean, all those factor into the same equation to what you just asked here today on the second one.
Got it. Thank you. Tim, back to you. How have you navigated the relationships with the public stakeholders and the labor union groups? And who have been your greatest allies in this?
Well, we're really fortunate in Chicago. Our building code is based on a cow that kicked over a lantern over 100 years ago. We have more complicated zoning and regulation than the city of New York. We have 51 mayors called aldermen and women, and we're fortunate to have a strong union and organized labor structure in Chicago. So what we decided was to partner with every single one of them. So working with the regional carpenters, we've crafted a first-of-its-kind labor agreement for Chicago. So we are a union facility going out to union shops, although we negotiated terms that make a bunch more sense in this sort of modern era. We partnered with the building department as well. Chicago has built its reputation on wild innovation in buildings. And then for 50 years, we didn't. So they are excited about being a partner with that. And then, as you can imagine, a city that is facing such pressures around housing, and frankly, that's one of the leading causes of people leaving the city of Chicago, we knew that we had to partner with the city as well. So in general, while Chicago has a sort of a rich tapestry of political complexity. Let's just use that. Does that sound positive? It is partnering with each one of these as stakeholders to say, we kind of have to do this all together. We can't do it in fits and starts or parts and pieces.
Got it. Yeah, if I were the mayor of Chicago, I would not have been offended by that. So last question to you, Justin. You guys are a pretty versatile company. You've done a lot of things. You have a technology platform for design, material sourcing, et cetera, et cetera. So if you look at all the options that technology enables, what are some of the most interesting ideas you've encountered or put into play?
The software, I think, could be revolutionary. I think CLT is definitely revolutionary. We talked about sustainability, the benefits to that. No question. Some of the lessons learned, I think, maybe would be for each municipality and trying to get in there as early as possible, because all of us, frankly, are out. We need to educate because we are doing it differently. And so I would say, we're in a bubble sometimes because we believe so much in what we're doing and we get fired up, and then you go and sit across the table from somebody and they're going, wait, what? And so, but no, and so just the education part in regard to everything that we're doing has been the most important, I think.
Fantastic. With that, I'd like you to join me in thanking this excellent panel for the fantastic insights that they provided.